Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you might be located. And thank you so much for joining me today for our live presentation on the top overnight rail experiences with Amtrak Vacations. I can see that quite a few folks are still in the process of logging in right now, so we're going to give them just a minute. But in the meantime, let me go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Colleen, and I will be your host today. I've had the very good fortune of having been with Amtrak Vacations for the last 8 years now, and I've been very lucky to have traveled all the way across the USA on a couple different occasions on board the train. So if you do have any questions about what it's like on board the train, or if you have questions about the different routes or what you can do on the vacations, really anything at all, if you do have a question, please go ahead and feel free to type that question away at any time throughout today's broadcast. You should see the questions box on the right-hand side of your screen. Just go ahead and drop me a line, shout me out a question at any time throughout today's broadcast. We will answer as many questions as we have time for at the end of today's presentation. Now, I can tell you from experience that we do usually get quite a few questions, which is great. It's my favorite part, actually, getting to interact with you folks and answer all of your questions. But if I do not have time to answer your question live on today's presentation, please do not worry, because we will make sure that somebody from the team does reach out to you and send you the answer that you need. So just keep that in mind. Again, drop me a question at any point throughout today's broadcast. So just some information today about what we are going to cover. Of course, our main focus is those popular overnight rail vacations. We're going to look at those fantastic Amtrak routes that go cross country, these overnight long distance trains. We'll talk about the different routes and what there is to see along the way and where you can stop off along the journey to combine multiple routes into one vacation. We'll also talk a little bit about how you can route that vacation from your hometown. And then a little bit later in the program, I have some fantastic photos for you to show you what life is like on board. We've got some great photos of pretty much all the different types of rooms, what they look like during the day and what they look like at night. And of course, we will touch on how Amtrak is providing a safe environment. Of course, I know that's top of mind for you folks. Now, if you have been on one of our Amtrak Vacations presentations before, bear with me just a minute, because I do tend to start them out all the same way. I love to start out all of our broadcasts with a look here at our Amtrak Systems map. So I really think the Amtrak Systems map is super inspiring because it shows you just how many places you can travel to on board the Amtrak network, all across the USA and up into Canada. Amtrak does connect up into Canada, and then we connect with the national train line there, the Via Rail train, if you did want to go across Canada or things like that. Now, Amtrak does touch 46 out of the 48 contiguous United States, and one of the two states that it does not visit is Wyoming. But with Amtrak Vacations, we have several fantastic packages to Yellowstone National Park up in Wyoming. So with Amtrak Vacations, you can travel to 47 out of the 48 contiguous United States. Now, Amtrak does have over 500 stations all across the USA and up into Canada. So many of the vacations that I'm going to show you today do start out in one of the more popular cities like Chicago or Los Angeles, one of the larger stations, just because that's fairly popular for us. But do not worry, you do not have to live in Chicago to take any of these trips. You can very easily start from your hometown station. So a lot of folks actually are already on some of the major train lines and don't even realize it, right? So if you're located maybe in Milwaukee or St. Paul, Minneapolis, you're already located on the Empire Builder train route. You can take that right out to Glacier National Park, as we'll see. Or maybe you're in Albuquerque or Kansas City. You're actually already on the Southwest Chief route, and we can take you easily right out to the Grand Canyon. Now, if you are not already on one of the major routes, do not worry, because it's very easy to connect from your hometown station through to one of the larger Amtrak long distance routes. So let's say you live in Michigan. And you'd like to travel out to the West Coast. Maybe you want to do the Coast Starlight train up the coast of California. Very easy. You would take your train from Michigan through to Chicago. and you would change trains there in Union Station in Chicago. So all of your train changes are going to be in the same station, so you never have to leave the station building, number one. They're all going to be same day connections, so you don't need to worry about getting a hotel in Chicago. You can just change trains that same day. We typically leave you a couple, 2, 3 hours for your layover, just so that you don't have to worry about rushing from point A to point B. I don't know if you've ever done one of those crazy connections on an airline, but I have, and I did not enjoy it. So we always leave you ample time to make those connections. And one of the greatest things is that if you do have checked baggage, they will check your baggage all the way through to your destination. So let's say you want to go from Michigan out to the Grand Canyon, you'll check your bags there in Detroit or Lansing or wherever it might be, and they'll be checked all the way through Chicago to the Grand Canyon. So you'll pick them up when you get to Arizona. Now, another great perk is that if you do upgrade to one of the private rooms, if you take a roomette or a bedroom, and we'll see some great photos of those later, if you do take one of the private rooms on board the train, you are considered a first class passenger. And first class passengers do have access to special lounges in a lot of these large stations like Chicago or LA or Washington. So you can kick back and relax in your own private lounge with your other sleeper car passengers, take advantage of some great complimentary snacks and drinks, and watch the TVs and relax in comfort while you wait for your next train. So it is really quite easy to connect from your hometown through to any one of these vacations that we will see today. Now, I do want to point out that we do have a really excellent sale going on right now this week. It's a limited time offer. It does end on Friday, but we do have the opportunity for you to make some great savings here, up to $500 per couple or $250 per person if you're traveling as a solo traveler. Do keep that in mind as we go throughout today. And of course, I do want to touch on what Amtrak is doing to provide a safe environment for you and your family. I know that is top of mind for folks as you are thinking about planning your next trip. And so I do just want to emphasize that Amtrak has enhanced their cleaning both in the stations and on board the trains. They've also required facial coverings. So you do need a facial covering when you are in any of the public areas at the station or on board the train. But another great perk, if you will, of having the roomettes or bedrooms or any of the cabins on board the train is that you can remove your mask in the privacy of your own room. So if you do take the roomette, for example, you can relax in the privacy of your own room, take off that mask. You would just need to put it back on if you did travel to any of the common areas of the train, if you went down to the cafe or similar. Now they also are limiting bookings, particularly this is in the coach seating. So if you are traveling on the train in coach, you do have plenty of space now. They are deliberately reducing their capacity to about 50% capacity to make sure to leave distance, distance between yourself and the next party to board. So they're encouraging social distancing that way by reducing the number of reservations they take in the coach seats. And of course, they are filtering fresh air throughout the train. About every 4 to 5 minutes, you're getting new filtered fresh air throughout the train. And of course, they do have contact-free travel, which pretty much means that you'll hold up your ticket, the Amtrak employee will scan it, and you never have to pass anything back and forth, so you reduce contact that way. And of course, all of these great long-distance routes that we will look at today do have the private rooms available. Now, before we jump into looking at the routes and the different vacations that combine them up, I do just want you to keep in mind that all of our trips here are customizable. So we can really customize any trip to make it the perfect vacation for you. As I said before, you can start from your hometown. You can also add on any destinations or extra nights. For example, one of the trips that we're going to look at has 2 nights in the Grand Canyon. But if you'd prefer to spend 3 nights in the Grand Canyon, no problem. Just let us know, and we can go ahead and add on that third night, easy peasy. We can also, of course, upgrade you to those private sleeping accommodations on any of the overnight journeys where they're available. And when it comes to hotels and sightseeing, you have a wide range of choices. You can choose from 3-star, 4-star, or 5-star options, just depending on where you normally like to stay when you travel. We can also customize your sightseeing. So for example, if our trip to Seattle includes admission to the Space Needle, and you let me know, hey, Colleen, I'm afraid of heights. I don't think I really want to go to the top of the Space Needle. No worries. We can easily set you up with maybe a food tour of Pike's Place Market. You can see them throw the fish to each other, right? Or maybe you want to head out to Mount Rainier and get out and breathe in some of that beautiful fresh air. We can substitute pretty much any tour for any other tour throughout our destinations. We have a wide variety, just depending on what you like to do when you go on vacation. We can set that up there for you. And without any further ado, let me jump into the main topic for today, because I know what you're really here for is to have a look at those incredible Amtrak routes and see what it's like on board. So we're going to start off here by looking at one of our most popular trips. It's called the Pacific Rail Experience. And the reason I wanted to feature this one today is because it highlights three, or includes on this trip, three of Amtrak's most popular, most famous long distance train routes. So this trip does start and end in Chicago. So you start out in Chicago with 2 overnights on the Southwest Chief train from Chicago out to Los Angeles. You'll spend one night in Los Angeles before boarding the extremely famous Coast Starlight train up to San Francisco. You'll spend 3 nights in San Francisco, do some great sightseeing in that area, and then take my favorite train pretty much anywhere in the world, the California Zephyr, from San Francisco back to Chicago. So that first train that you start out on from Chicago to Los Angeles is the Southwest Chief. Now, this is 2 overnights on board the train. So you'll actually board this train in the afternoon, right around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You can get settled into your private room or into your seat. In the evening, you'll have dinner on board the train. So as you kind of leave Chicago, the train is going to cross the Mississippi River. And it's going to take you into the Midwest. So in the late afternoon, early evening, you're going through the beautiful Midwest, sort of the Great Plains. You've got the rolling kind of wheat fields and cornfields, and it's really lovely because at dinner time, the sun starts to set, and everything turns a beautiful kind of golden color. You've got these beautiful rolling golden fields out the window as you eat dinner. After dinner, you'll settle in for a good night's rest. And when you wake up in the morning, you are right there in the Southwest, and you're looking at this incredible kind of desert landscape throughout your journey this day. You see these sandstone cliffs, the kind of painted desert atmosphere as you come into Arizona. At one point on the train, you're going through a curving kind of canyon where the cliff walls are only a few feet wider than the train itself. And you're really seeing these spectacular kind of red rock desert vistas throughout your journey to Los Angeles. Now you arrive in Los Angeles in the morning, which is great because that gives you a full day for sightseeing. You have all day in Los Angeles. We do include a city tour, so you can see those really popular sites like Rodeo Drive and Hollywood Boulevard, right? You can also, again, customize any of the sightseeing. If you'd prefer to head out to Santa Monica Pier, go dip your toes in the Pacific Ocean, we can easily arrange a tour out there for you. And after your stay in Los Angeles, you're going to board Amtrak's famous Coast Starlight train route. Now, the Coast Starlight train is particularly famous for its incredible coastal views, as you can see in the photo here. Now, these folks are sitting in the observation car. One of the great features about these long distance trains is that they all do feature an observation car. The trains themselves, in all instances but one, which will be towards the end, all the other trains we're going to look at today are double-decker trains. So they've got 2 levels. So in the observation car, you've actually got the observation car on the top level. You can see kind of the dome, right, going across the top there. And underneath the observation car on the first level of the train is where the cafe is. So you can easily pop down from the observation car down to the cafe, grab a snack, a drink, whatever you like, and then head back up to the observation car. Now, of course, this train route is most famous for the beautiful Pacific coastline, for good reason. It's pretty stunning. But as you get close to San Francisco, the train actually does cut inland. And at that point, you are going through kind of these rolling, beautiful vineyards. You're in wine country as you come up into San Francisco, as you may know. And it's a great time maybe to pop down to that cafe and grab a glass of wine. They do have wine and beer and cocktails available for purchase in the afternoon. So you can pop down to the cafe, bring your lovely glass of wine back up to the observation car, and observe those vineyards as you travel through. Now, I will just point out quickly for you folks, if you are planning a trip uh, in the next couple months here, in the winter time of 2020, due to COVID-19, the cafe is takeout only. So you can still visit the cafe. You can grab that beautiful California red wine if you like, but it is takeout only. So you would grab it, you'd head back to your seat, your room, or your spots in the observation car. Normally, if you're traveling, let's say you're going to be heading out next summer, and hopefully social distancing won't be as necessary. In normal times, the cafe car does have seating downstairs as well, so it's got little tables where you can sit and enjoy your snack. Now, the observation car, I do want to point out, is open right now. So it is open even with COVID, but they do have social distancing measures in place at this time in the observation car. Now, after your journey on the beautiful Coast Starlight train, you will arrive in San Francisco, and you've got 3 days in San Francisco. And the reason we have you stop off there for 3 days is because it's such a fun and vibrant city. There's so many different neighborhoods where you can take in San Francisco. Of course, there's the famous Fisherman's Wharf district where you can go down and get some incredible chowder and seafood. They've got a great Chinatown and a fantastic Little Italy with all these little sidewalk cafes like outside, right? Sitting out on the street and having incredible Italian food. And of course, from San Francisco, you can step out into the great outdoors, and we do include a guided tour out to Muir Woods for you. Now, Muir Woods is a grove of gigantic, huge redwood trees, which is located just outside the city of San Francisco. So we'll pick you up at the hotel, bring you out to the beautiful Muir Woods, and you've got a couple hours worth of time where you can do some exploring. Now, I know this particular photo has a little bit of a sort of stairs on the trail, but don't worry, because if you do have concerns about mobility, there are a lot of paths in Muir Woods which are, they're not paved like with pavement, but they've got wooden platforms, like a deck, I guess, a trail, if you will. So perfectly flat, easy to walk in Muir Woods. Trust me, I don't hike, but I had no trouble whatsoever getting around, and there's some great opportunities for photos with yourselves in these massive trees that you couldn't wrap your arms around if you tried. And then after your tour out to Muir Woods, to get you back to the city, we actually include a bay cruise to get you out on the water, because I always think if you've traveled all the way across country to California, you need to see the Pacific Ocean and actually get out on the water there. So we include a bay cruise to take you back to the city of San Francisco. And this is fantastic as well because it gives you an opportunity to take some pretty incredible photos of the Golden Gate Bridge as you come up to the city. Now, after your stay in sunny San Francisco, or foggy San Francisco as it sometimes is, we'll have you board the California Zephyr train for your ride back to Chicago. Now, as I mentioned a minute ago, this is probably my favorite train ride in the whole world, not just in the US, but in the whole world. And the reason for that is that it's absolutely stunning scenery all throughout the journey. So it's a 2-day journey from California back to Chicago. And the scenery, not only is it breathtaking, but it's constantly changing, which is one of the other things that I just found so impressive about the California Zephyr train. So as you leave California, you're going through the Sierra Nevada mountains. So you've got these sort of tall, towering pine trees, kind of rounded out mountains there as you're leaving California. You then come into the state of Nevada, and you really transition into this kind of incredible desert scenery. So kind of flat as far as the eye can see, tumbleweeds going by the train, Roadrunner in the distance, right? So you're in the Nevada desert. And then as you come into Utah, the scenery really kind of shifts again, and it's this incredible red rock, sort of sandstone cliff kind of scenery. And at that point, you pick up the Colorado River, as you can see in that left-hand photo there, and you follow the Colorado River for hundreds of miles into the state of Colorado. And once you hit Colorado, the scenery changes again because you're now climbing up into the Rocky Mountains. So you've got the granite, snow-capped peaks of the Rocky Mountains. As you climb up into them, as you go through through Colorado, and then you come down into Denver, and then from Denver across to Chicago. The rest of that day, you start coming into again the Great Plains, and you've got sort of the rolling golden fields of the Great Plains. You then cross the Mississippi River, which I always think is super neat to do, and then there you are in Chicago that afternoon. So it's a really stunning and beautiful 2-day ride across the U.S. from San Francisco back to Chicago on that California Zephyr train route. Now, this trip here is 9 days altogether. And when we say rail experience, really we're intending this one for you rail buffs who want to spend just as much, if not more, time on the train as you do in your destinations, right? This one is 4 nights on board the train and 4 nights hotel, so pretty evenly matched. It does include the hotels when you do stop, so includes those hotels in Los Angeles and San Francisco, as well as the great sightseeing that we talked about, city tours of LA and San Francisco, as well as that great Muir Woods tour and the Bay Cruise in San Francisco. And it starts at just $14.49 per person. Now that is in the coach accommodations, and that is based on 2 people sharing a room. Now you'll see all the prices I'll mention throughout today's presentation are based on 2 people sharing a room, but we can easily accommodate you if you're a solo traveler or if you're a group of 3 or 4 or 5, whatever it might be. Just either give us a call or call your local travel advisor. The local travel advisors, those folks, travel agents, are fantastic. They can help you to make reservations for any one of these Amtrak vacations that you'll see today. So if you do have a travel agent, an advisor that you like to work with, go ahead and give them a call. They can help you with that solo pricing. Certainly we can here too at Amtrak Vacations. Now, this next trip is actually the same routing. So it's the Southwest Chief, the Coast Starlight, and the California Zephyr. But I wanted to throw this one in just to give you an idea of how easy it is to customize the trip just based on what you want to see along the way. So let's say, yeah, you're not too interested in Los Angeles. Maybe you've been out there before, but you've never been to the Grand Canyon. Easy to add in the Grand Canyon along the way. So this one here does Chicago out to Arizona, stop for 3 nights there and visit the Grand Canyon. Then continue on. You actually just change trains in Los Angeles. You don't spend any nights there. You just change trains there in the morning and head straight up to San Francisco. And another good example of how we can customize the sightseeing for you. If you don't want to do Muir Woods in that Bay Cruise, if you figure, well, I came all this way, maybe I want to see Yosemite National Park. No problem. That is very easy for us to do. We'll set you up with a full day excursion out to Yosemite and then back across to Chicago on that California Zephyr. Now, one of the things I love about this trip is that you get a bonus train ride. So the Amtrak train will bring you as far as Flagstaff, Arizona. And how this works is you'll get off the Amtrak train in Flagstaff, Arizona, and we will pick you up there at the station. We'll then bring you to Williams, Arizona, so not a long ride, just shuttle ride over from Flagstaff to Williams. And in Williams, Arizona, we have the Grand Canyon Railway train. There's a hotel right there at the Grand Canyon Railway Depot, and because you get in the evening around 9 o'clock, we'll have you spend the first night in Arizona here at the Grand Canyon Railway Hotel. When you wake up the next morning, breakfast is included for you, and you just take a stroll over to the depot. You have a fun little Wild West cowboy show before the train kicks off. And then you take this incredible Grand Canyon Railway journey from Williams up into the south rim of the Grand Canyon itself. So it brings you right inside Grand Canyon National Park. And the train itself is really neat. I can't emphasize it enough. It's vintage railway carriages, steam-powered train, vintage railway carriages. And it's really neat because they've got the cowboys from the Little Wild West show will actually board the train with you and kind of provide you with entertainment throughout the journey. They come around playing the ukulele and have a little sing-along and things like that. Now, there's different classes of service on this Grand Canyon Railway train. You can upgrade to like first class or luxury class. If you're in luxury class, you get a champagne toast as you kick off. And as I said, this train will bring you right inside Grand Canyon National Park. Now, if you have not had the opportunity to visit Grand Canyon before, I cannot recommend it highly enough. It's an incredible place to visit. The scenery is absolutely stunning and breathtaking. The first time I saw the Grand Canyon, genuinely did not look real. It looked like a painted Hollywood backdrop because it just stretches on and on and on as far as the eye can see. It's actually 277 miles long, 18 miles wide at its widest point. And there's loads to do there in the Grand Canyon. And one of the great things about our trips is that we do have you stay inside Grand Canyon National Park. So you're going to stay at one of the historic lodges right there on the rim of the canyon inside the national park, which makes it so easy to get up in the morning, even though it's very early, and see the sunrise over the canyon. Trust me, I am not an early riser, but I highly recommend that you get up and see that sunrise. It's a genuine once in a lifetime opportunity to do that while you're staying inside the Grand Canyon. And because you're inside the park, you can pretty much roll out of bed 10 minutes before sunrise, find yourself a great spot along the rim, take some incredible photographs, and then head back to your lodge for some coffee to start your day off. Now, after your beautiful stay in the Grand Canyon, of course, we'll have you finish that Southwest Chief ride out to Los Angeles. And then, as I said, you'll change trains in LA Union Station, only about 2 hours in between trains. So, again, plenty of time so you don't feel rushed, but not enough time so that you get bored. We'll have you transfer onto that Coast Starlight train and head up to San Francisco. Now, again, as I mentioned, Coast Starlight is most famous for its beautiful Pacific coast scenery. As you can see in the photo here, there's a lot of stretches of this journey that you can actually only see by train. You can see in this photo there are no roads, right, that are going along the same curve along the coastline as the train is going along. So there's a lot of parts of this beautiful coastline that you can only see by train. It's really neat in other parts which are a little more accessible. You can actually see surfers out in the waves. Sometimes you can see the little seals playing in the coves, like that cove that it just went past there. So I can tell you from experience, it's an absolutely beautiful journey up to San Francisco. And we do have you spend 3 nights in San Francisco. And this time we have you travel out to Yosemite National Park. Now, Yosemite National Park is technically the third national park here in the US, but it definitely deserves some credit for kicking off the national park idea. It was actually established as a state park, protected land for the public in 1864, which, if you think about it, it's a little crazy. The height of the Civil War, they're stopping to set aside national park, or in this case, state park land for the enjoyment of the American people, which is really a totally unique concept at the time. Now, of course, Yosemite is best known for its soaring granite cliffs like El Capitan and Half Dome, and its tumbling waterfalls. Yosemite Falls is actually made up of 3 different pieces of the falls, and it makes up one of the tallest waterfalls in the world. Now, I do always tell folks, make sure that you bring your binoculars out to Yosemite National Park, because not only could you see some of the incredible wildlife like black bears, deer, coyote, peregrine falcons, or golden eagles, you can often also catch the climbers as they make their ascent up El Cap or up Half Dome. You actually may have seen there's a couple recent relatively recent documentaries about some famous climbers going up these peaks. Certainly check them out. They are on your local streaming service um, if you haven't already. Now, I will point out as well, again, these trips are customizable. So the way this trip works is it is a full day sightseeing tour out to Yosemite. So the trip will pick you up at your hotel in San Francisco. It'll bring you out to Yosemite National Park. It includes a guided tour of Yosemite. And then you have several hours of free time. Now, during that free time, you can take one of several trails right from the visitor center. You can take a easy to moderate trail out to the falls. That's quite easy to do. Trust me, I do not hike, and I found it pretty easy. Or if you're concerned about mobility, there's another path which is almost completely flat. It's a flat graded path with signs and benches along the way as well, which will take you out to the meadows for some great wildlife viewing, and you get a little bit of a further distant fantastic view of the falls from there. So just ask us or your travel advisor. We can always recommend things for you to do in that free time, but it is quite easy to get around. There are also shuttles which travel around inside the park. And as I started to tell you before I got distracted by the trails, this trip is customizable. So if you'd like to actually spend a night or 2 nights or 3 nights, whatever you like, actually at Yosemite, we do have accommodations there at the national park. So you could take the tour, have it pick you up in your hotel in San Francisco, travel down to Yosemite, do the guided tour, and then instead of several hours of free time, you could have several days of free time before you take that same transfer service back to San Francisco. So we could very easily have you stay in Yosemite National Park if that's important to you as well. Now, after your time in San Francisco and Yosemite, you will board that beautiful California Zephyr train back to Chicago. I will point out one little fun fact about the California Zephyr is that as you go along the Colorado River, you very often see folks in kayaks or fishing on the river, and they always stop and wave to the train, super friendly. Now, this photo here is taken from the dining car. Now, as I mentioned previously, the trains are double-decker trains. So the way the dining car works is you've got the dining car on the top level, and then on the bottom level is actually the kitchen where they prepare your food. Now, of course, that's off limit to guests, but they'll prepare your food right beneath your feet and bring it right up to you in the dining car. So this trip here, Grand Canyon to Yosemite, round trip from Chicago. Like I said, it's a little bit of a longer trip than the Pacific Rail experience because you spend a little bit more time off the train. You've got 6 nights hotel accommodations and 4 nights on board the train. This one here, so 11 days total, does start at 2,249 per person, and of course includes all those things we talked about: the sightseeing tours out to Yosemite, Grand Canyon, includes, of course, your accommodations, that Grand Canyon Railway train, all that's included there, starting at 2249 per person. Now, one of the biggest draws for folks taking the train, of course, is our national parks. We've looked at 2 so far. Our next national park, Glacier National Park, is probably the park that is most convenient to the Amtrak train. Now, on this particular trip, Glacier National Park round trip from Seattle, it's 2 overnights on the train, 1 overnight out to the park, 3 nights in the park, and then 1 more overnight back out to Seattle. Again, folks, you can customize these trips. So if you're located in Portland, Maine, Portland, Oregon, or Portland, Maine, I guess. Portland, Oregon, a little bit shorter, same route, 1 overnight. Portland, Maine, though, you can absolutely do it. You pop down to Boston, Boston across to Chicago, and Chicago to Glacier Park. I would take you 2 overnights to get there, 1 overnight Boston to Chicago and 1 overnight Chicago to Glacier Park, but certainly doable. But of course, this trip here is from Seattle, and so it does feature Amtrak's incredible Empire Builder train. So now the Empire Builder, when you leave Seattle and you travel through Washington State, you're going through the incredible Cascade Mountain Range. Now the Cascade Mountain Range, typical for these towering pine trees, flowing waterfalls. At one point, there's a waterfall. Sorry, my New England accent's coming out there. There's a waterfall right next to the train itself. So ask your sleeper car attendant if you have one. They'll tell you when to keep your eyes peeled for that photo opportunity. And then as you come into Montana, you hit the northern Rocky Mountains. So the California Zephyr went through the Colorado Rockies, several hundred miles south, and the Empire Builder actually takes on the northern Rocky Mountains in the state of Montana. So you get some incredible scenery. That's another shot on the right-hand side there from inside the train. Of course, that is from the observation car again, so you can get some really incredible views from that observation car. And then the highlight of this trip, of course, in addition to the train ride, is Glacier National Park. Glacier National Park is known for its deep valleys, ancient forests, and dramatic alpine scenery. As the name would suggest, there are glaciers in Glacier National Park. There are 26 glaciers, actually, in the park. And there are over 130 pristine, glacially fed, glacially carved lakes like the one you see in the photograph there. Glacier National Park is one of the largest national parks here in the US. It's over 1 million acres. Actually, 2 different mountain ranges meet in Glacier National Park. And while you're there, you could spot hundreds of different species of animals and birds, including, but certainly not limited to, the mountain goat. The mountain goat is the emblem of the park. They're pretty ubiquitous. You see them all over the place in Glacier Park. You could also, if you keep your eyes out, potentially spot elk, moose, black bear, bighorn sheep, the guys with the big, huge, curvy horns there, littler guys like beavers and marmots and foxes, all kinds of different wildlife throughout Glacier National Park. And while you're there, we have you go on two incredible sightseeing journeys. The first sightseeing trip included in Glacier Park is called the to Medicine Valley Boat Cruise. Now, this will include round trip transportation from the Glacier National Park Lodge. So we'll pick you up right there at the beautiful lodge, take you out to Medicine Valley Lake. You'll do a boat cruise around the lake. You'll get some great information from your tour guides. You then have the option to take a short hike out to a waterfall, or you can relax lakeside and take in those spectacular views and breathe in that fresh mountain air. Your second day in Glacier National Park, you do a full day tour of the park. That full day tour is actually on a vintage, restored 1930s vehicle. Kind of looks like one of those red Jeeps that got stretched way out to fit a few more passengers. Goes up on the steep windy mountain roads throughout Glacier National Park. And you will see several famous sites throughout your journey: the Continental Divide, St. Mary's Lake, Lake McDonald. You'll stop for wildlife viewing of the mountain goats, and many more different stops on that full day journey. It basically makes an entire circle of the park. And again, this one will pick you up and drop you back off at Glacier National Park Lodge. Just one quick fact about the lodge: it is incredibly close to the Amtrak station. It is only about 209 steps from the train station to the front door of the lodge. This photo is actually taken from just across the road at the train station, so you can see how close it is. It was the crown jewel of the Great Northern Railroad. It was actually built at the turn of the century, so it's over 100 years old, but it's incredibly charming and cozy and historic, of course. They've got a great big huge fireplace in the lobby with a piano where it often has folks serenading you. They've got a great dining room where you can eat there at the lodge. And of course, it's right inside the national park, so the tours pick up and drop off there. It's the perfect place to stay to really experience the park. And of course, this trip does start and end in Seattle. So if you'd like to customize it by adding hotel nights or some sightseeing in Seattle, very easy for us to do. We can have you go out to Mount Rainier if you like, as you can see in the distance in the photo there, or potentially Olympic National Park as well if you want to make it a multi-park trip. So this one here, Glacier National Park round trip from Seattle. It's 5 nights altogether, 2 nights on board the trains and 3 nights inside the park. Of course, it includes those 2 fantastic sightseeing tours, and it starts at $14.99 per person. Now that $14.99 per person is based on coach accommodations on board the train. So just the regular seats on board the train. And the reason that most of our prices are based on those coach accommodations is because the rooms, the roomettes and bedrooms and the other rooms do really vary in price. The price can be quite different depending on where you're going, what time of the year you're going, when you book, how many other folks have already booked that route in those rooms. But I always think if I don't give you any kind of frame of reference for the price, you're going to assume it's expensive. And in a lot of cases, it can be quite affordable. So for this trip here, Glacier National Park and Seattle, I did look in the middle of June for you because Glacier Park is a seasonal destination. Glacier Park's the only seasonal destination that we'll talk about today. Everywhere else is year-round, but Glacier Park is only open from June until about the middle of September. So I did look in the middle of June to give you an idea. And if you upgrade to the roomette, that's the smaller of the 2 rooms. Still fits 2 people though, quite comfy for 2 people. It's about $100 per person right now for the middle of June for that upgrade to the roomettes. And again, that's based on 2 people sharing the room. Now that $100 per person includes both nights on the train. And if you do take the rooms on board the train, that includes all of your meals. So in this case, it's 3 meals on the way out to Glacier Park and 3 meals on the way home. So you can see just $100 per person for 2 nights accommodation and 6 meals is pretty affordable, especially again if you pair it with that sale we've got going on right now. And for the bedroom, which is about twice the size of the roomette. It's about double the space. And the bedroom, as you'll see in a few minutes, has its own private bathroom and shower. The bedroom accommodations are right about 325 per person, based on, again, sharing the room with two people. So if you want the rates with the roomettes and bedrooms on any of the trips you see today, just call us or call your local travel advisor, and they can look that up for you, because like I say, it does vary quite frequently. That's why we don't do everything in the from price. We just do it based on coach, because that's a little more steady. Um, Now, our final trip that we'll look at before we look at the inside of the train is our grand tour. This grand rail experience is for you train buffs who want to ride as many Amtrak train routes as possible. This one here features 5 incredible Amtrak train routes, including 2 new ones that we haven't seen. No, 3 new ones we haven't seen yet. Starts out on the Empire Builder, Chicago out to Seattle. Seattle down to LA on the Coast Starlight, which you're familiar with by now. And then you ride the Sunset Limited, famous train from the song there, Sunset Limited out to New Orleans, do a couple nights in the fabulous city of New Orleans before taking Amtrak's Crescent train up to Washington, D.C., and then the Capital Limited back across to Chicago. Now, as we talked about, you do pass through Glacier National Park on the Empire Builder. This train does the full Empire Builder route, right, from Chicago all the way through Glacier Park on to Seattle. You'll do a night there in Seattle. And again, we do have a city tour included here for you while you're staying there in Seattle. You then take the Coast Starlight train all the way down the coast to Los Angeles. From Los Angeles, we'll have you spend a night there just to make the connection, because you arrive in the evening. The next train heads out the next evening, but you wouldn't quite connect in the same day. So you do need one night in LA. Before you board Amtrak's famous Sunset Limited. Now, the Sunset Limited is a really beautiful ride, folks. It starts out leaving California and then takes you into the desert in Arizona, southern Arizona and southern New Mexico. Takes you along through the state of Texas. And then as you come into Louisiana, the scenery really changes to this beautiful kind of bayou scenery with the hanging Spanish moss, lush green plant life, all the little water pockets, rivers and streams and little ponds and things of the bayou. And that'll bring you right to New Orleans. Now, New Orleans is a fantastic city to visit. We've got you there for 2 nights, but you could easily add on extra time if you have it available. Best known, of course, for its culture, its food. The food is incredible, Creole and Cajun cuisine. Of course, the jazz music and music throughout the French Quarter there in historic New Orleans. Before you board Amtrak's Crescent train up to Washington, D.C. Now, the Crescent is a little bit unique of the trains that we have looked at today. The Crescent is the only single-level long-distance train that we're focusing on today, mostly on the East Coast. Pretty much if you think of mostly from the Mississippi River east, those trains along the East Coast are single-level trains. One of the reasons for that is that the tunnels for the trains were built so long ago that they didn't have double-decker trains in mind, so they're not tall enough to accommodate those double-decker trains. But some great news on these single-level trains. They actually are coming out next year with brand new sleeping cars, so brand new sleeping cabins for you there on the trains. They're going to be set up the same way as the double-decker ones, but nice and new and shiny for you. So this will take you up to Washington, D.C. And we do have you spend a night in Washington, D.C. Once you're there, you're going to do a tour called the Monuments of Moonlight tour. That's going to take you out to see the city all beautifully lit up in the evening. Before you board the Capital Limited from Washington back to Chicago. Capital Limited, really lovely kind of rolling hillsides, charming little towns and villages as you go through the scenery on your way up to Chicago. Particularly beautiful in the fall with the foliage, as you can see in the photo here. And the trip will end there in Chicago. So this one here, a bit longer trip, 14 days altogether, starts at $2,199 per person. Again, it is customizable. Maybe you live in California, you want to start and end in LA instead. No worries, that's super easy for us to do. Just let us know how you'd like to customize it, and we can make that happen there for you. Now let's have a quick look at luggage for the train before we look at the accommodations on board. Very common question about what you can pack on the train, and Amtrak does have very generous luggage allowance. So you can have 2 free carry-on bags. And in addition to the 2 free carry-on bags, you also get a personal item like a purse, a laptop, backpack, that sort of thing. And then you have 2 checked bags as well. So wherever checked baggage is available, which is most stations, just ask us or your local travel agent if you're starting from your hometown station. But almost every station does have the checked baggage available. Now, if you are checking bags, it does work similar to an airline. So you do check the bag in at your starting station. Maybe it's Boston or maybe it's somewhere in Florida, wherever it might be, right? And you don't see it again until you arrive at your destination. So you cannot access your checked bag during your journey. So you want to make sure to pack everything that you might need for that journey in your carry-on. So make sure that you bring your toothbrush, your pajamas, your clothes for tomorrow, your charger for your phone or any other electronic devices like a tablet or a laptop if you're going to bring one. Bring some entertainment, bring a deck of cards, bring a book, bring a tablet that you preload with some movies or something like that. You can also bring snacks and drinks. If you do have your own private cabin, you could even bring a bottle of wine, for example, to enjoy in the evening in your private cabin. And with those baggage, if you are going to be checking bags, we do recommend that you get to the station right about an hour before the train departs. Um, if you are not checking bags, if you're just going to go for a weekend and bring a carry-on, etc., we recommend that you get to the station about 30 minutes prior to the departure. So no need to arrive 3 hours early like you do when you take an airplane. About 30 minutes to an hour prior, depending on if you're going to check baggage or not. Now, just a quick look at the coach accommodations. The coach accommodations are quite comfortable. As you can see right off the bat, there is no middle seat. So no middle seat in coach. It's either an aisle or a window seat always. Those seats do recline back quite a bit. It's about a 45-degree angle. If you've got an armchair in your living room, go lean back in your armchair. It's about the same amount. They do have a little footrest that comes up as well. Now they've also got a great big beautiful picture window, as you can see there. Outlets at just about every seat. With coach, you primarily would be storing your bags overhead or underneath the seat. But if you do have a larger bag that you're not comfortable lifting overhead, there is a luggage rack at the front of each coach car. Now, with coach, I should point out that your meals are not included. You can certainly go down to the dining car or to the cafe and purchase a meal, but it would be purchased out of pocket. Now, if you're only going to be in coach for a few hours, maybe making a connection or something like that, you can easily bring snacks and food on board. But if you are traveling for a longer distance, we do always recommend at least checking out the private sleeping accommodations. There are quite a few perks of having a private sleeping accommodation in addition to, of course, the comfort of a bed overnight. And one of those perks is priority boarding. So you do get separate boarding as a sleeper car passenger. They'll make the announcement over the loudspeaker in the station for the sleeper car passengers to board first, and you can take a leisurely stroll down to the train. You do, of course, also have a privacy door that you can, lock when you're in the room and for your own privacy and comfort, of course. And one of the great features of having one of the sleeper rooms is that you do have your own dedicated car attendant. So each sleeper car will have their own car attendant. And these folks are fantastic. These are the folks who are going to make up your beds or make your seats into beds at night, make your beds back up into seats the next day. They're super friendly and knowledgeable. They're some of my favorite people I've met in any of my Amtrak journeys. And they are responsible for the facilities. So there are shared facilities in each sleeper car, which will be important to you if you are in a roomette, because in a roomette you will be using the facilities which are located just down the hall. Now, do keep in mind that you're not sharing those facilities, so restrooms and showers is what I mean by facilities, by the way. You are not sharing those restrooms and showers with the entire train. You're not even sharing them with everybody that has a roomette. You are only sharing them with the other folks that have a roomette in your train car. And of course, there are multiple restrooms. There's 4 restrooms usually for each train car. Um, and as I said, those sleeper car attendants are fantastic. They are very dedicated to keeping that space spick and span and neat and tidy. I've traveled in a Remet multiple times, and I've never had any issues with the facilities. Honestly, the shower that you use, the shower is much bigger and more spacious than the shower in the private room. Um, so another little perk there. Now these roomettes are the smaller of the 2 cabins. As you can see here, they have a beautiful big giant picture window. Also have a fold-out tray table for meals or to set up a laptop and watch a movie. You do have outlets, of course, and climate controls in your roomettes. As you can see here, during the daytime, they are 2 chairs which face each other. Now, for luggage, primarily you'd be storing your bags in the roomette underneath your seats. Now, when you first get on the train, there is a luggage rack. So any larger bags you can leave on the luggage rack. And then just bring a small sort of overnight bag up to the room with you. So that's always what I recommend. You can still bring a big suitcase. You can just leave the big suitcase on the luggage rack, but then pack anything that you're going to want to access easily and quickly during the journey, like your toothbrush, your medication, whatever it might be. Pack that in a smaller duffel or something. Bring it up to the mat. You can store it right under your feet pretty easily. Now, in the evening, these do fold down into bunk beds, as you can see in the photo here. And there are 2 steps to get up into the top bunk. You can just about see the first step right down there by the gentleman's elbow. It's blue on the top and gray on the bottom. You can't see the second one. There's another one, though. So it's 2 steps to get up into the top bunk. I've done it myself on multiple occasions. I don't find it to be too challenging, but I know that a lot of folks do have concerns about it. And if both of your passengers do have mobility concerns, one thing that you may want to keep in mind is that you can always take 2 roomettes, right? We can always book you 2 roomettes right across the hall from each other. And that way you can sit together during the day. You can actually sit in whichever roomette has a better view. It's kind of nice. And then in the evening, you can fold down just the bottom bunk in each roomette, and each person has their own bottom bunk with loads of room above their heads. So definitely an option for you if you are concerned about getting up to that top bunk. And as I mentioned, with the roomettes, the facilities are just down the hall there. Now, if you do want a little bit more space, or maybe you want those private facilities, you may want to check out the bedroom accommodations. The bedrooms are just about twice the size of the roomettes. And as you can see in the photo here, you can sit across from each other. They've got a freestanding chair. Or you could sit side by side. Where the lady is sitting is a love seat style seating, which you'll see better in just a minute. But before I move the picture, just have a look over the gentleman's head. There is a little bit more storage for baggage. You can throw a bag up there. Again, you've got that great big picture window. You've got the tray table that you can set up for, eating your meals or watching a movie on your laptop. And if you did want to watch a movie and sit cozily side by side, you've got this actually pretty large love seat here. You can see the size with the 2 ladies on it there. And there's plenty more room for baggage underneath your seat. You can see how much more room you have, I guess, for baggage storage. Now, with the bedrooms, the main highlight of the bedroom is that you do have your own private restroom and shower facilities. Now, the sink and vanity is actually right across from the ladies. It's in the room itself. It's just across from that love seat there. You can just about see, if you're looking at the top right-hand corner of the photo, you can see the towel hanging. That's hanging right above the sink. And then the actual toilet and shower are in their own separate stall, which has got a nice door to close. So it's totally private and separate from the rest of the room. But it is private to your room. So each one of these bedrooms will have their own. Again, if you're looking at the top sort of right-hand part of the picture, you can just about see the latch, which will let you into that little toilet shower stall. Now, once you're in the toilet shower stall, if you turn the shower on, you're going to get the whole little room wet. It's not unlike a sailboat, if you've ever been on a sailboat, but it is, like you can see, totally separate from the room, so it's not like you're going to get your room wet or anything. I know I've had people ask that before. They're like, you said you get the whole room wet. I'm like, oh gosh, no, I don't mean the whole room. I just mean your little facilities stall there. And again, it is private to you right in your room. So again, it's perfect, especially right now, if you need to social distance. You don't even have to leave the room really throughout the entire journey. Now, in the evening, these do fold down into bunk beds, so it's a bottom bunk and a top bunk. It is definitely easier to get up to the top bunk in the bedroom because you have a full ladder to climb up. It's just out of frame here, unfortunately, but you do have a full ladder to get up to that top bunk. Now, the bottom bunk is right about the size of a twin size bed. Now, I have heard folks say that they've slept two adults on the bottom bunk, but I think you'd have to be very comfortable being very cozy. Like I said, if you picture your kind of childhood twin size bed, that's about the width of um, the bedroom bottom bunk bed. It is longer; it's 6 foot something or other, so it's usually pretty accommodating to most folks' heights. But the width of it, I just probably wouldn't put two adults on it myself. Now, Amtrak does have an accessible room as well. The accessible room is designed for one person with mobility concerns and their companion, so it is a larger room. It does have room for their wheelchair, as you see in the photo there. It is still going to be bunk beds though, so the top bunk is going to fold out at night just above her head. You can see shiny gray top bunk that would fold out there would look quite similar to the bedroom that you saw in the previous photo. Now, the accessible room does have its own private facility, so it has its own private toilet and sink. They're located just behind where the attendant is standing right now. And with the accessible room, they do have access to an accessible shower. It's not in the room, it's actually just outside the room. Kind of go right out of the room and hang a right. It's right there, so it's not too far at all, and it is accessible. Now, the way the shared showers are set up on the Amtrak trains, it's not shared when you're in there. Once you're in there, you lock the door and it's private just for you. But it's two kind of compartments. There's a changing room area where you can leave your pajamas or your clothes for tomorrow, right? With towels and things like that. And then there's the actual shower stall. Now, Amtrak does provide little tiny toiletries, right? Little soap and shampoo. But if you have a preferred shampoo or conditioner that you like to use, feel free to bring that on. With Amtrak, you can bring on normal sized bottles of liquid. There are no strange restrictions on your liquids. You can bring a normal sized bottle of shampoo, no problem. Now, for the meals, I do want to highlight right now, if you are traveling this month, next month, something like that, um, all of the long distance trains right now have the flexible dining menu. Now you can see in the photos here, the flexible dining is designed to be portable. It's designed really to bring down to you in your room. And the meal choices, while there's some great choices, chicken marsala, enchiladas, chicken fettuccine, pasta and meatballs, braised beef, right, Creole shrimp and andouille sausage. So wide variety of choices on the meals, but they're a little bit less customizable. They're designed to be prepared hot and brought to you, but be prepared quickly and by fewer people. It's really all around safety precautions due to COVID-19. So if you are traveling in the next couple months, that is the menu that you will have, and they do encourage you to have the meals delivered to you there in your private room. Now, if you are traveling, maybe planning on a trip next summer, and hopefully we can relax some of these restrictions, we do anticipate that as soon as possible, the traditional dining will return to these long distance trains. And with the traditional dining, it's more of that experience that you'd expect. You go down to the dining car, you can order your steak medium rare. They're going to make it right under your feet in the kitchen and bring it right up to you. So it just depends on when you're traveling. Again, we fully expect the traditional dining to return as soon as they're able to do it safely. Quick reminder for you before I get to the questions, we do have a fantastic savings offer going on right now. You can save up to $500 per couple if you book this week. We do have some great everyday discounts as well for seniors, children, and military members. And we do have what we call our maximum flexibility offer. And what that means is that if you book the trip this year, you have the flexibility to make any changes or even cancel the trip right up until 5 days prior to your departure with no change fees and no penalties. So it doesn't matter when you travel, could be 2021, 2022. As long as you book the trip this year, you've got that maximum flexibility to make any changes or even cancel it if you need to right up until 5 days before your trip. Just a quick reminder, we do these presentations every week, so we've got some great topics coming up in the next couple weeks for you. Do please sign up for those if you had fun today. And I will take as many questions as we have time for now, but just very quickly, a question for you guys. And that is, what destinations are you interested in? and when are you interested in traveling. So we do these presentations, as I said, every week, and I want to make sure that they stay fresh and fun and exciting. So let me know where you want to go, and we'll make sure that we include it in one of the upcoming presentations. Now, without any further ado, I will answer as many questions as we do have time for. Question here, let's see. Question here from Susan. Susan would like to know about specialty diets. So great question, Susan. So if you are vegetarian or if you need kosher meals, Amtrak will always make sure to have vegetarian and kosher meals as some of their choices. Now, if you have a different dietary restriction, like maybe it's low carbs or low sodium, the best thing to do would just be to speak with the attendants on board the train. They can let you know what meals would be best for a low carb diet or a low sodium diet. And if you are traveling next year, um, we do expect the traditional dining will return. And at that point, they're a little bit more customizable, right? Because they're kind of preparing them right down in the kitchen. So they could potentially, make a lettuce bun instead of a bread bun, for example, just depending on what that diet might be. Uh, Next question here from Ken. Ken wants to see more pictures of outstanding Glacier National Park, especially the tours. Great point, Ken. We will be having a national park themed presentation coming up in a few weeks. I think it's 3 or 4 weeks from now. So definitely tune in for the national park themed trip. We actually had one 2 weeks ago as well that was about the national parks. We actually had a national park ranger come along. So if you go on our website, amtrakvacations.com, you can find that webinar if you want to watch the recording of it. And then, yeah, tune in a couple weeks. We'll have another national park themed trip, and we'll talk a lot more about those beautiful sites in Glacier. Next question here from Diane. How can you get a price including the rooms? Great question, Diane. So it all just depends on which trip you're interested in and when you want to travel. But just give us a call or call your local travel advisor, and we can get you a trip price on any of these trips here with the roomette or the bedroom or the accessible room, whatever you prefer there. Question here from Judy. Are animals allowed that are not service animals? So great question, Judy. So of course, first and foremost, service animals are always welcome on board Amtrak. If you are going to be traveling with a service animal, just let us know, just so we can make a note in the reservation there. But of course, they're more than welcome. For animals that are not service animals like pets, it really all depends, again, where you're going and how long you're going to be on the train. There are some restrictions, but just give us a call or call your local travel advisor, and we can get you those details. Just, again, it's all based on which trip you're looking at. So unfortunately, there's no sort of broader answer. Next question here from Jerry. Is Wi-Fi available? Great question, Jerry. So Wi-Fi is available on some trains. So the Coast Starlight train that we saw typically does have Wi-Fi available. But most of the long distance trains, like the Zephyr and the Empire Builder, they don't have Wi-Fi on board. A lot of the times they're going through some pretty remote places like mountain ranges and deserts and things like that. So what I always recommend to people regarding Wi-Fi, if you are bringing a tablet or a laptop, go ahead and download some movies or some games or things like that that you can play and watch offline. Go ahead and download those ahead of your trip. Actually, if you are taking advantage of the Amtrak lounges, like in Chicago, they've got great Wi-Fi in the lounge there. So you can download some movies or TV shows right before your trip. A lot of the streaming services and things will let you download some ahead of time. So go ahead and do that. Certainly, if you're bringing an ebook kind of thing, right, like a Kindle or an ebook, go ahead and load up on those books ahead of time. The Wi-Fi will be intermittent throughout the trip. You might pick it up in some places, but I would not depend on having it, if that makes sense. Let's see, just got questions from a couple more folks. Charlene here would like to know about trips from Paso Robles. So we've got actually some great trips to Paso Robles, Charlene, if you want to vacation in your own backyard, or if anybody else wants to vacation there, some great trips out to Hearst Castle and wine country. But Hearst Castle, the great news, I mean, sorry, not Hearst Castle, Paso Robles, the great news there is it is right on the Coast Starlight train, so super easy to connect up to Seattle or Portland, Oregon, down to Los Angeles, and then from those places, you can connect out to the Grand Canyon, out to Glacier Park. You can head up to San Francisco or Sacramento and connect on to the California Zephyr and head out to Yellowstone or Rocky Mountain National Park in Denver. So actually very well connected there. So it just depends on where you want to go. It won't take us too much to get you there. Great question here from Teresa. Are all excursions available, and is there an elevator on board the train? So great question, Teresa. So there is not an elevator on board the train. So if you are on one of the double-decker trains, you have a couple choices just depending on your mobility level. If you do think you could go up the stairs, you could book an upstairs room, and at that point, everything else is upstairs, like the observation car and the dining car. So you'd only have to go up the stairs twice, once at the beginning of your journey and once at the end. If you do not feel like you could do the stairs at all, that's okay. The accessible room is downstairs, and easily they could have the meals delivered to you there in your room. You do still have the big, huge, beautiful windows. The nice thing about the accessible room as well as that, like I say, it is on the bottom floor, so you can still really enjoy the trip even if you can't do the stairs. And as far as the excursions, pretty much all of our excursions are accessible. You're just going to want to inquire about the specific trip that you're on, but we can really make accommodations, accessibility accommodations on basically every trip. Question here from Diane. If you have a room, are you restricted to the room for the entire trip, or can you move to the coach car? Great question, Diane. So you would not really head down to the coach car, but you could head to the observation car, to the cafe, and to the dining car. So you're certainly not restricted to your room. Throughout the journey, there's plenty of public spaces on the train where you can kick back and relax. Of course, if you are traveling, like I say, in the next couple months, that cafe is takeout, and the observation car does have social distancing measures in place just to make sure that it's not too crowded. But certainly you can head down to any of those public areas. Great question here from Jill. Do passengers have problems with motion sickness on the train? Jill, I've been on the train multiple times and I've never had any issues with motion sickness. The train does certainly move throughout the journey, so it is kind of rocking a little bit. So if you are concerned about that motion, yeah, maybe consult a doctor about getting something for the motion sickness. But honestly, most of my colleagues have traveled on board the trains, and I've not really heard anything about anybody having a motion sickness. But of course, you know yourself better than I do. But yeah, it's not a common problem anyway. It's not a prevailing issue. Great question here from Jane. Do you plan to feature the East Coast? Great question, Jane. I am on the East Coast myself, so I'm always rooting to include trips over here on the East Coast. We do have some great trips up to Acadia National Park in Maine, over to Great Smoky Mountain National Park in Tennessee, down to Shenandoah. Washington, D.C., of course, is fantastic. Charleston and Savannah on the East Coast are some of my favorite cities to visit. So I will see what I can do to get more East Coast trips included in our upcoming presentations, Jane. No problem. Another question here, do we do weekend webinars? Great question. We typically always have our webinars on Tuesdays. Sometimes in our really busy months, we do Tuesday and Wednesday. We don't usually do them on the weekend, but we do record them all. So if you do miss one, just go ahead and sign up for it anyway, even if you know you can't attend. And then after the fact, we'll get an email out to you with a copy of that recording. And that way you can always watch it at your leisure. You can watch it on Saturday morning with your cup of coffee if you like. All right, folks, just time for one more question. And then again, as I promised, if we don't have a chance to get to your question, do not worry because we'll have somebody reach out and answer it for you. Question here from Barbara. If you are in a sleeper car, can you still access the observation car? Absolutely, Barbara. You can head down to the observation car at any time. Very quick little pro tip for you folks. If you are moving in between cars, there are, doors obviously that you have to go through. The first button that you see to open the door is at, you know, hand height, but there's also a button by your foot, so you can kick the door. Well, not kick the door, sorry, kick the button that's in the door, and that'll open the door, and you don't have to touch the door with your hand, so you don't have to worry about it. So super helpful in these times when we want to avoid touching common surfaces as much as possible. Go ahead and kick the little button at the bottom of the door. It's kind of fun to do. The door whooshes open, right, like it's on Star Trek. And you can head down to that observation car. So sure, the observation car is open to everyone, to actually answer your question. Folks, thank you so much for joining me. I love chatting with you guys. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day. I hope this was informative. Certainly, again, if you have any questions, go ahead and type them in right now, and we'll make sure that somebody reaches out and sends you the answers that you need. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you again for joining me. Thank you.